Hey, what's up guys? It is almost time to spray. You can see the grass is starting to turn green. If I don't get some pre-emergent down, I'm going to be covered in weeds and sandburrs. Before I can spray, I got to get these leaves out of my yard. I should have done this months ago, but my shoulder's been broken and I haven't been able to work out here. So before I can pick up these leaves, I need to get some maintenance done on the mower, and then I can get to work. So the first thing on the list today, we're going to get an oil change on our trusty John Deere 332. John Deere made these tractors back in the late 80s, early 90s. They're an awesome little 3-cylinder diesel-powered tractor with hydraulic spools and a hydraulically operated deck. It's been a year since it's had an oil change, and we're about to go work it hard, so it would be good to get that done. Next, we're going to do an oil change on our leaf vacuum. It's a Cyclone Leaf Commercial Pro. It's a great tool for cleaning up your yard. We've had this thing for a few years, and this is how we clean our 1.5 acres. Next, we need to change our oil filter. I like to wipe off the outside since it's sideways mounted, and I don't want any of that old dirt and grime falling down into our oil intake. I pause to let the oil drain out of it, and then continue unscrewing. And set it aside. Then just a quick wipe down of the mating surface to make sure anything that's been caked on there, any dried oil, is removed. For a new oil filter, I like to use Wicks. A 51334 is a suitable replacement for this motor to John Deere's OEM oil filters. I get a little bit of oil and I lubricate the sealing O-ring before installing it on the mower. Turn it till it's snug, and then just a little bit more. And then write the date on there so you know when you did it last. An indication of hours would be better, but my hour meter doesn't work. I'm just using Shell Rotella T5 here. It's a synthetic blend oil that is in 15W40. Pretty much every diesel out there could use 15W40. I added enough oil so that I'm about a half a quart to a quart away from capacity. And then I'll check it on the dipstick to make sure I have enough to start the mower. Next I need to run the engine for a minute so that I can make sure that the oil filter is full. That way I can do a final oil level check and be good to go. If you watch the red light on the dash, when that light turns off, that means that the motor has built up sufficient oil pressure to lubricate properly. I can check for leaks and then shut the engine off and check my oil level and make sure that it is correct. Looking at the dipstick, you can see I'm about 3/4 of the way between the full and the empty marks. On every engine I've ever worked on, the full and the empty are a quart apart. So I'm going to add about a half to 3/4 of a quart and then check it again, and we should be good to go. Above half, less than full, looks perfect to me. I've hooked up the leaf vacuum to the mower here in order to do the oil change on it. An interesting note is the way this vacuum tows. Typically, a trailer has a single contact point and follows the mower. However, this has 2 fixed contact points, which makes turning more interesting. More on that later. Alright, now I just need to run it a little bit to get it nice and hot so the oil drains faster. Anytime I have a small engine like this that gets put away for the winter or for any length of period, I always drain all of the gasoline out of it. So first we got to put a little bit in there. Alright, a little story time some of you might find interesting. This is actually not the original engine that came with this machine. When I went to buy it, I bought it used from some guy local here in town. He said, after I showed up, he was like, hey, really sorry to tell you this now, but I tried to run it last night and it ran for a minute and then died, and now there's no compression. So he let me drive 40 minutes out there with the engine that didn't work on a leaf vacuum. And he's like, so just make an offer. You know, I was like, I don't know, how about $100? And he took it. So I got this $2,500 machine for $100 with a bad engine. I went down to the local tool store, bought a new Briggs & Stratton that had the same engine horsepower, torque specs as the one that came on it, and the right kind of shaft to match to the little impeller. Slapped it on there, and so basically I've got this entire leaf vacuum for about $600. One heck of a deal with $600 with a brand new engine. According to the manual, the kind of oil that you want to use in these is going to be a synthetic 5W30. They need about a half a quart, less than 3/4 a quart. So when I show you the dipstick here, I don't think that the oil level actually shows up. And what I said earlier about the full and the empty being a quart apart, obviously that doesn't apply when you don't even put a quart into the engine. That's more for real cars. Alright, the last step is to hook the tube to the mower deck and then hook up the tube back to the vacuum. This is the worst part of my vacuum. This hose has seen some use. It's all cracked and unfaded, and well, Cyclone Rick, if you're watching, I could use a new tube. All jokes aside, Cyclone Rake actually has tremendous part support. I'm kind of impressed with their company. I think mine is a 2007 model, and you can still get on their webpage and find every single part of this entire thing on their website for sale. All right, and with that, all the maintenance is done. We got the oil changes done. I greased the grease zerks off camera. Everything is ready to go. So let's get out there and get those leaves cleaned up. As I'm driving this thing around, now you can kind of tell what I was talking about earlier. The 2-point hookup on the back of the mower for this leaf vacuum, instead of following the mower as I turn, the back of this leaf vacuum actually swings far to the left and the right as I turn the mower the opposite direction. So the leaf vacuum swings to the left as I turn to the right. That's actually why I'm so far away from the fence right here. If I got closer to the fence, I would have had to turn harder to the right, which would have made the back of this thing come back and hit my camera. And then as I get to the top of the hill, you can see I've got to get way past that column of bricks so that I can turn to the right, and then you can watch it swing back around. So as you drive one of these things through your yard, going around trees can be a challenge. You kind of have to make a couple big circles, because otherwise, as you turn back into the path on the other side of the tree, the back of this leaf vacuum is going to clip the tree. So one problem with these machines is as you pick up sticks, sometimes they get stuck crosswise in the tube. They start blocking all the leaves, and you've got to stop and clean everything out. Hopefully this is common sense. Turn the blades off before you stick your hand in anything like this. I know you can hear the engine still running, but the blades are off and there's nothing spinning down here. First, if you're still here at this point, I want to say thank you. And then I need to apologize to you. This is where the video quality really starts to fall apart. I had hoped to set this up as a time lapse of getting this whole side of my backyard cleaned up, and I'm not sure what happened, but the video quality is super grainy. So I'll just run for a little bit and let you guys see how this thing kind of works in operation. In some places, the obstacles are so close together with the way this thing steers, you'd never get in among them. So I just use my leaf blower to kind of push them away to where I can pick them up with the vacuum. The vacuum's completely full and it's time to dump it. I just have a pile growing in the back corner of my yard. Once this pile gets too big, I'll push it out into my yard somewhere, and I have a tiller that I can use to turn it into the soil. The yard is Bermuda, and Bermuda seems to grow back through just about anything. I haven't found a better way of getting rid of these leftover leaves. I wish they'd compost in this pile, but I think there's just not enough moisture and not enough green stuff. I'm not eager to dump green grass in there and stir it up. Once it's tipped back, about half this stuff wants to fall out. So I tried to just shake it a little bit, and then I like to drive the mower backwards up onto the pile, try to keep this pile as centralized as possible. And then by the time I pull forward again, just about everything is out and I'm ready to go again. So I have in front of me the 3 products that I like to spray as part of my springtime weed treatment regimen. I have Prowl H2O. That is my actual pre-emergent. The Oklahoma State Extension Office recommends this for what I'm primarily treating is sandburrs. I really hate a sandburr. If you don't know what that is, it's this extremely sharp seed. It's about this big. When you pull it out of your foot, it gets stuck in your fingers. It's just, they're miserable. So they recommend Prowl H2O. It has 10-dimethylene as its primary ingredient, and it does seem to work very well. Next, I use just any generic 2,4-D to treat anything that I haven't gotten before. It's sprouted before I put the Prowl out. You can get this at any Home Depot, Lowe's, Tractor Supply kind of place. And just mix both of these mix together with no ill consequences. And then I like to use a little bit of dye. I'm not trying to turn my lawn green like some of those lawn companies. I just need enough to know where I've been and make sure that I'm not missing anything. I talked to a few professionals, and this is the brand that they recommend, Mystic HC. I haven't ever found this local, so I ordered this and Prowl H2O online. There's several sources. They are not cheap. This is about $170 last I checked for 2.5 gallons. And I don't even remember what this is, but both of them together are fairly expensive. Here I have a couple examples of some of the things you'll need if you want to do your own spraying. I recommend getting, and this is just the actual nozzle, I recommend getting some real spray nozzles that have like a chart so that you can know how many gallons per minute they flow, and you can correctly calibrate your sprayer so you're not being wasteful. They also will come with a filter that goes inside the nozzle so that you can keep your spray head clean. You're going to want a jar or some kind of mixing pot that has lots of different ounce measurements on the side. Don't use your wife's cooking stuff. So I use just a paint mixing cup. It works really good. And then the last thing you're going to want is a real pair of gloves. These are just some cheap Harbor Freight PVC gloves. They come up way past my wrist, and that's helpful. If you can see, my fingers are already turning green just from the handle on that dye. It's super concentrated. The chemicals are obviously going to be bad for you as well, so anything you can do to keep that stuff off of you would be even better. This is what I use for my spray rig. It's only 15 gallons, which isn't nearly enough for my yard, but it fits nicely on the back of my mower, so I can control where I go and where I spray. I just got a cheap little pump that goes on it, and a pressure regulator so that I can maintain the same amount of pressure. I got a gauge so I can see that it's where it needs to be. I've set my spray rig up to be controlled by a power switch up on my front console. And so what that lets me do is, as I reach the end of a path, I can flip that switch, it turns the pump off, and then these nozzles are specially designed to stop spraying when pressure drops below 10 psi. So what that lets me do is, at the end of that path, when I flip the switch off, nothing else comes out of these. They don't dribble or drizzle. It's just an immediate cutoff. And so as I go turn around on my driveway or whatnot, I'm not spraying or drizzling little trails of green water everywhere I go. So this is where buying a slightly more professional nozzle would be really helpful. The nozzles, the clamps to mount them on some PVC, and then the other pieces weren't very expensive, all things considered. And this is one of those filters I showed you a second ago. It just goes in the end here, and then the nozzles pop on. So then everything comes apart for easy cleaning. You can just flush some water through the system when you're done to get all the chemical out, and then drain everything so it doesn't freeze in the winter. Most common setups are designed, or most calibration that you're going to read about on the internet talks about spacing your nozzles 20 inches apart and the spray nozzle 20 inches off of the ground. Now mine are a little bit low, and so my calibration is always just a little bit off if I don't account for that. If you get your system set up 20 inches apart, 20 inches off the ground, you can use those charts that come with your nozzle to calibrate your sprayer. There's a lot of guides on the internet all over the place on the correct procedures to do that. There is a bunch of math involved in that. You need to measure things, and how fast does your mower move, and how much are you spraying, and there's a lot of things that go into that. But it's definitely worth doing. And so with that, let's get out there and spray this yard. All right guys, it's a brand new day. There's almost no wind, so it's a perfect day for spraying. I've already got my water tank halfway full. The directions say you should start with your tank halfway full before you start adding the herbicides. All right, I've got my hose turned on just on a real low stream, just so that I can rinse this cup out without spraying water everywhere. Now I can go ahead and fill the tank the rest of the way and let the water move in and agitate the mix up. Alright guys, looks like we managed to get that spraying done before all the sandburrs sprouted. Thanks for tuning in and watching. Like and subscribe, and I'll catch you next time.